Hello and welcome to Eastern Europe Review, the program dedicated to covering the latest events in countries east of Poland, primarily Russia, Belarus and Ukraine. This is a joint production of BELSAT TV and TVP World. I'm Igor Kule, and here are today's top stories. Quadrobers, a new threat for Russia.
So take away their toilet paper. Why does a cat need toilet paper? Let them lick themselves clean just like a cat does. When the child gets sick, go to the vet, not to the doctor. How are we meant to save humanity? Tougher measures are needed to save humanity from all this nastiness and all these perversions.
Kremlin will assist Lukashenka in repressing Belarusians.
We did not and will not allow the situation to be destabilized or the country to be plunged into chaos.
In Ukraine, cotton is grown for gunpowder production.
I wish I could produce a shell today and send it to my neighbors, but that would just be a drop in the ocean. It's just research.
In Belarus, the date for the next so-called presidential elections has been set for January 26 of next year. At the BRICS summit, in an interview with a Russian journalist, Alexander Lukashenka confirmed his intention to run for yet another term. Meanwhile, repression within the country is intensifying as the regime is preparing to confront any opposition, potentially with support from Russia.
A video released by Belarusian security forces has revealed the detention of well-known Belarusian journalist Ihar Ilyash. He had remained in the country due to his wife, fellow journalist Katerina Andreeva. In November 2020, she was arrested while live streaming in Minsk and was subsequently sentenced to 2 years in prison. Later, her sentence was extended by another 8 years on charges of alleged treason. Ihar Ilyash has been accused of supporting so-called extremist groups and gathering information for foreign intelligence.
The point of this story is if that you were once a journalist or worked in independent media, you're now at risk.
The recent detention of Ihar Ilyash is not an isolated case of pressure on journalists. Just last week, it was reported that the property of journalist Tatyana Karavyankova, who moved abroad following the 2020 protests, had been seized.
Fear is the primary tool Lukashenka uses to suppress any activism. Journalists don't speak publicly, don't show their faces, and don't write critical material. What's more, everyone who's left the country feels the pressure from the authorities.
The Human Rights Center Vyasna has identified nearly 7,400 individuals involved in politically motivated criminal cases since the mass protests of 2020. Among them, just over 6,000 have been convicted. The actual numbers may be even higher. Human rights activists report on trials of regime opponents almost daily. With the so-called 2025 presidential elections approaching, repression in Belarus is escalating further.
Repression will intensify on a daily basis. The so-called security services maintain a riots database that will be used for preventative detentions. They will target various people who have been on Lukashenka's Punisher's radar since 2020.
In light of the upcoming election campaign, Lukashenka has repeatedly discussed the supposed plans of his opponents to overthrow the regime.
We did not and will not allow the situation to be destabilized or the country to be plunged into chaos.
Belarusian security forces are demonstrating their readiness to respond to emergency situations, while Moscow is also prepared to support Lukashenka. The Russian ambassador to Belarus, Boris Gryzlov, announced the possibility of military support during the so-called 2025 elections.
The goal is to further deepen Belarus's dependence on Russia, which is precisely what Lukashenka Lukashenka is doing. During this election campaign, we can expect serious and potentially dramatic events that could impact Belarusian statehood.
The date for the so-called presidential elections in Belarus has been set for January the 26th, 2025, and Lukashenka has already initiated a covert campaign.
In Ukraine, the first cotton crop is being harvested. In the Odessa region, fields have been sown with seeds for large-scale cotton cultivation aimed at domestic gunpowder production. Farmers received seeds imported from the United States, Germany and Turkey. Experts are calling this experiment a success, but a key question remains: will Ukraine be able to produce its own gunpowder?
The best conditions for growing cotton are in the southern regions of Ukraine, with Crimea being an ideal location. However, due to the Russian occupation of the peninsula, doing this is currently impossible. Therefore, the Odessa region was chosen as the site for the experiment.
The most important thing is that it ripens, and we can see that it really is ripening. Recently, temperatures have increased significantly. Just look at how the temperatures in Odessa and Kyiv are often quite similar.
A suitable climate is a key component for successful cotton farming, but it is not the only factor. The main threat to the crop comes from insects, specifically the cotton bollworm.
We haven't allowed any cotton bollworm to run wild. What's more, we've discovered effective products that can be used to protect the plants and achieve high yields.
The primary processing of the harvested crop, which involves the separation of fibers from the seeds, has been planned to take place in Ukraine. Following this, experts will evaluate the most suitable variety of cotton for gunpowder production.
Samples of each variety will be sent abroad for analysis. This analysis will evaluate efficiency and specifically how effective our shells will be.
There are currently no prospects for producing gunpowder in Ukraine. Even if a plant is built, the issue of protecting it from shelling would become critical. According to experts, the only viable solution is to cooperate with foreign arms manufacturers.
The German Rheinmetall Group has announced its intention to participate in this process. As a major arms manufacturer, their involvement would be significant. However, even if we sign an agreement, building a plant and fine-tuning the technological processes will take at least 3 years. I wish I could produce a shell today and send it to my neighbors, but that would just be a drop in the ocean. It's just research.
China is the world's leading producer of cotton, accounting for more than 25% of the global fiber production. India and the United States round up the top 3. However, Russia, which launched the war against Ukraine, is not among the top 10 producers.
They're mainly targeting the Central Asian republics and China itself for gunpowder production.
During wartime, cotton is especially valuable because it is a key ingredient in the production of nitrocellulose, which is utilized in the arms industry to make gunpowder. Even in the 21st century, with new military technologies already in use, the demand for gunpowder is increasing rather than decreasing.
So far, drones haven't replaced artillery. Unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, artillery remains the primary means of inflicting damage. It accounts for the greatest number of casualties overall.
Ukraine's current demand for nitrocellulose is estimated at 10,000 tons, which will require 30,000 hectares of cotton to be harvested next year. The Ukrainian authorities have promised to reimburse half of the cost to the farmers who are willing to participate in this initiative.
A new threat is reportedly looming over Russia: Quadrobers. These are people, often teenagers, who playfully imitate animals by donning cat masks and dog tails. Officials are taking this seriously, with discussions in the State Duma about the possibility of banning the trend, while schools and kindergartens are holding preventive talks with children.
A threat to Russia's national security. That's how you can describe those who like to dress up as animals. According to Russian authorities, it is quadrobers and furries who are capable of destroying foundations of traditional values.
On the one hand, it's like a game, but on the other hand, in the West, quadrobers already define themselves as a separate gender.
Quadrobers are a teenage subculture that originated in Japan and suddenly has become viral in Russia, now, for some reason, bothering officials and deputies.
Here's a trending topic, quadrobers, and now they're already gathering in flocks in forests, putting on masks and running around in search of acorns and, I don't know, wild mushrooms.
Quadrobing is associated with the LGBTQ community and zoophilia. At least that is the conclusion of a propagandist and film director, Nikita Mikhalkov.
Did you know that among American furries, and this, like quadrobers, is a mimicry of animals, there are 10 times more people who belong to the LGBTQ community? That is, quadrobers and the LGBTQ community absolutely coincide in their rejection of the naturalness of human life. Moreover, this also coincides with zoophilia.
Does Mikhalkov provide any data to support his point of view? Of course not. Quadrobers have even become a topic for church sermons. The new movement has been labeled by the church as a perversion. Priest Gennady Shkil has proposed depriving quadrobers' parents of their rights and quadrobers themselves of hygiene products.
So take away their toilet paper. Why does a cat need toilet paper? Let them lick themselves clean just like a cat does. When the child gets sick, go to the vet, not to the doctor. How are we meant to save humanity? Tougher measures are needed to save humanity from all this nastiness and all these perversions.
Quadrobers have also become the subject of conversations on the international stage. On the sidelines of the CIS summit, the head of the Russian Foreign Ministry discussed with his Armenian colleagues, as he described it, the #1 problem in the country.
Do you have quadrobers? Children dress up as dogs. No? That's one of the major news stories in Russia. They walk like animals. And what is this new movement? I've seen it, but the phenomenon itself is unfamiliar.
Russian officials and deputies have decided to take control of the movement, which according to tradition means banning it. Legislative measures are currently being prepared.
Today we're at a stage where people are being pushed to reject not only their gender, but also their human identity, being offered the opportunity to examine themselves in the roles of animals, fictional characters, and mythical creatures. Such manifestations may only seem like a game or a joke at first glance, but behind this lies a serious agenda of rejecting humanity and everything that is human.
Meanwhile, an anti-quadrobing campaign has been launched in schools and kindergartens, involving specific talks with children about the harm caused by quadrobing. In addition to teachers, psychologists and even prosecutors have been meeting with children to dissuade them from getting involved in the activity.
And that's all for today. Join us next Sunday for another edition of Eastern Europe Review. I'm Igor Kuley and you're watching TVP World. Stay tuned.